A brand new head unit from Garmin, something new from Wahoo, the new Trackr Madone, a new Pinarello Dogma, and a new lightweight Wilier. The Tour de France has clearly just started and there is a lot of new tech, so let's dive in. Let's start with that brand new Garmin head unit because they have just launched the new Edge 1050, which the brand claims to be its brightest and smartest cycling computer ever. Now, the Garmin Edge 1040 Solar was only launched a couple of years back, and we understand it will still exist as a solar option alongside the 1050. The unit will carry a £649.99 RRP, and this then situates the new 1050 at the very top of the cycling computer market. The Edge 1050 has a touchscreen display and will deliver a claimed 20 hours of battery life and 60 hours in battery saver mode. Now, that is highly capable in terms of normal road and gravel. However, it does kind of fall short when you kind of compare it against the latest batch of ultra-long battery life computers such as the Coros Dura, which we think could last up to 375 hours. The Edge 1050 has received some design tweaks as the new unit has an angled casing and tougher all-metal buttons. There's also some interesting new features such as contactless payment support, as well as building on Garmin's reputation for its computer's strong fitness and training tools. There is also a replaceable quarter-turn mount as well as a 3.5-inch liquid crystal display. What's interesting is that the Edge 1050 will support, as I said, Garmin Pay contactless payments. Now, that tech means that owners will be able to pay at the cafe using their cycling computer, leaving their cards at home or their phone in their back pocket. I think while this tech makes sense for smartwatches, to me, it kind of seems a little bit redundant on a head unit, since most people do carry their phone with the same functionality. And to me, this kind of feels like they're offering features for the sake of it, rather than them actually being very helpful. But that said, there is also a built-in speaker which Garmin says will enable riders to hear workout and navigational prompts. There's also an on-device bike bell to alert other road users to your presence. The 1050 includes free Garmin training plans and real-time stamina insights, much like previous models, but the Power Guide feature will now take wind data and a rider's current stamina level into account to make real-time power target adjustments. This all sounds great, and many of the new software features will be making their way down to pre-existing models by way of a software update very soon. But I would like to put it to all of you. How many of you actually utilize all of the features of your head unit? I wonder if we're entering a world where brands are adding features for the sake of it rather than them actually being regularly used and helpful for the end user. So let me know down below, because I, for one, rarely take advantage of the training features on my own head unit. Next up, we're going to move on to Wahoo because it has launched a new heart rate monitor and strap called the Trackr Heart Rate. Now, usually I probably wouldn't include something like this in Tech of the Month, but there is something kind of interesting about this unit. Wahoo says that it has improved processing technology for accurate heart rate monitoring data, and potentially more excitingly, the brand has now switched from using a coin cell battery to instead include a rechargeable battery, which Wahoo says will give most users over 100 hours of heart rate recording. It does kind of feel weird to be talking about rechargeable batteries as an exciting upgrade in 2024, but it certainly feels a little overdue. My biggest hope though is that the new sensor will stand up to corrosion from sweat, because for me, this is how so many of my heart rate monitors end up dying. One thing to consider though is that Wahoo's older Ticker X had a store and forward functionality, allowing you to use it without a recording device, but the Trackr Heart Rate does require a connected data collection device. Wahoo says that the Trackr Heart Rate is the first of a new range of tracker sensors that will be introduced between 2024 and 2025. It's priced at $79.99 here in the UK or $89.99 over in the States. So keep your eyes peeled for more sensors to come. I have a feeling that the death of the coin cell battery might be upon us. On to very, very big bike news, which some of you may have already heard about. And Trek has officially launched its new Madone Gen 8, claiming it's as aero as the Gen 7 Madone, but as lightweight as the Emonda. Now, the new Madone replaces both bikes, so Trek joins the growing number of brands that are starting to abandon separate aero and lightweight offerings. Now, the claims Trek make about the bike are kind of unsurprising, and it does kind of boggle the mind how multiple brands are seemingly able to create the impossible. That being a lightweight bike which is more aero than its dedicated aero ancestor, and as lightweight as its lightweight predecessor. But let's look past that, because if true, the new Madone could be one of the most exciting bikes to launch in 2024. Obviously, it lines itself up pretty perfectly against the Tarmac SL8, the Cannondale Super 6 Evo, and the Pinarello Dogma, all of which have been updated pretty recently. But it does beg the question, which should you buy? Well, first, let's look a little closer at what claims Trek has made about the new Madone. Trek says that the new Madone sheds 320 grams from the Gen 7 Madone frameset, which in turn was already 300 grams lighter than its own Gen 6 predecessor. It claims a 796 gram weight for a painted size medium-large Madone SLR frame and 350 grams for the fork, without added hardware tech such as the UDH rear derailleur hanger. That puts the claimed full bike weight of a top-spec Madone SLR9 AXS bike at exactly 7 kilos. Now, for comparison, that's over 200 grams heavier than an S-Works SL8 with the same group set. This has resulted in the Gen 8 Madone being as light as the Emonda. Trek says that it's aero-optimized the frameset where that's most important, but thinned out the tube profiles from the Gen 7 bike where the aero gains are less to allow it to shed the weight. The aero tube profiles have had an upgrade too. Trek says that its new full system foil shapes have gone beyond camtail to offer better aerodynamics over a wider range of yaw angles thanks to a more rounded trailing edge in place of those sharper edges of old. Onto some classic time-saving claims. Trek says that the new bike is as fast as a Gen 7 Madone and 77 seconds faster per hour at 200 watts than the Emonda. Now, the new bike retains the handlebar's 30mm narrower hoods than drops for a more tucked position, but the bar stem has been redesigned to improve airflow over the complete rider bike system and reduce its weight. There are new aero 595mm water bottles and cages, although you can also fit round bottles in the cages. Trek says that the RSL aero bottles and cages save 3.7 watts at 45 kilometers per hour over standard round bottles and make the bike faster than without bottles. It's a similar approach to that used by Cannondale on the latest Super 6 Evo, with that brand claiming that its bottles improve the Super 6 Evo's aerodynamic performance. Now, back to the Madone. The SLR grade Madone is constructed using Trek's latest 900 OCLV carbon, which it claims is up to 20% stronger than the 800 OCLV carbon used in the Gen 7 Madone. A new moulding process and single-piece fabrication of the fork also allows Trek to save weight. Of course, it wouldn't be a new flagship bike if there wasn't a claim about compliance, and so Trek says the new Madone's vertical compliance is now up to 80% greater than on the Gen 7 bike and 24% greater than the Emonda. Trek has also rationalised the size range, with the new bike now offered in 6 sizes from extra small to extra large. Now, that compares to the Gen 7's 8 sizes. Trek, though, say that despite offering fewer sizes, there's less overlap between frame sizes, so that the Gen 8 Madone can actually fit a wider spread of rider heights. The new size medium replaces old sizes 52 and 54, while the new XL replaces the 62, but it does include a taller seat mast. The geometry across the range is actually very similar to the Gen 7 Madone, although the frame stack is ever so slightly higher. Rather than calling the geometry H1.5, as with the Gen 7 Madone, it's now been renamed to just Road Race Geo. Trek will sell the new Madone in 2 frame grades, SL and SLR, and both are offered at launch in 4 specs with SRAM and Shimano options, as well as a frameset only option. The SLR bikes use the latest 900 series OC/LV carbon, the one-piece bar and stem, and RSL aero bottles and cages, and are electronic only. You can choose your own colours in Project One as well as the off-the-shelf colours. However, the SL bikes are made using 500 series OC/LV carbon and have a separate bar and stem. They're not available in Project One, only pre-built, and you don't get bottles or cages, but the frame is compatible with mechanical group sets. We'll flash up pricing on screen now for you. The key things here are that the top spec build in the US is $200 more, but this could be attributed to the new SRAM Red group set. Over here in the UK, the top spec build is actually £2,050 less compared to the Gen 7. Obviously, the price of £12,500 is astronomical for a bike, but it does feel like we're reaching some sort of a ceiling, albeit a very high one. I do believe that this will be one of the most interesting bikes to be launched this year, and I'm keen to see how it performs out on the road. I think a comparison between the new Madone, the SL8, the new Dogma, and the Super 6 Evo is something that certainly needs to happen. But let me know down below, which would you pick? Trek aren't the only ones that have been busy getting a huge model out in time for the tour, as Wilier has launched the new Verticale SLR, which, you guessed it, it says is its lightest bike ever, and which replaces the Zero SLR model. There are a lot of facts and figures to go through, much like the Madone, so I've tried to boil it all down into the key things which I think are most interesting. The claimed full frame set weight, including fork, bar and stem, seat post, through axles, and other hardware, is 1,651 grams, and this is in comparison to the Zero SLR's 1,798 grams, which is just under a 10% weight reduction. The main sources of the new bike's weight loss when compared to the Zero SLR are the frame, the fork, and the bar and stem combo. The drop in weight is arguably the biggest headline stat of the new bike, but other key changes are: there's a new seat post clamping mechanism that tightens from under the top tube rather than above it, and this has resulted in a triangular shaped junction between the top tube and the seat tube. The seat post has been re-engineered to save weight too. It's now 10 grams lighter than the Zero SLRs. Wilier has also changed the front derailleur hanger design. It can now be mounted in two different positions. This accommodates the 50-34 tooth and 52-36 tooth cranksets used by most riders, but it also allows the pros to fit a crankset with a 56 tooth chainring. The frame's geometry is basically the same as the Zero SLRs, but Wilier has come out with a new monocoque V bar and stem combo, which it claims has a weight of 310 grams for a 100 by 400 mil bar size. The new bar design includes a flare at the hoods, which places the arms 30 mil closer together when riding on them compared to when you're in the drops. Considering that the tops are 30mm narrower than the drops, these bars will work for a lot of people, but it really would have been nice to see the brand go a little narrower still, especially since this is a race bike and we know how many watts can be saved on a narrow bar. Wilier will sell the Verticale SLR in 7 build specs, as well as a frameset only option. All of the full specs are equipped with wheels from Miche, which Wilier now owns, and that's either going to be the Kleos 36 or the Kleos RD 36. There are 6 frame sizes offered, from extra small to extra extra large. Full bikes start at £9,000 or $12,000 for the Ultegra Di2 spec. The top UK spec comes with SRAM Red axis with a power meter and is priced at £12,500. So it's still very much in the out of this world price category, but it does align itself pretty closely with the range topping bikes from other World Tour sponsoring bike brands. Now lastly, and it was a couple of weeks ago now that the new Pinarello Dogma was launched, and it really does look to be an incremental improvement over the last generation. But I think rather than expecting revolution every single time, perhaps we need to look at the Dogma as a Porsche 911. It's always small changes from generation to generation, but over time, the constant improvement does net some pretty big changes. But the big question is, out of all of the new bikes which will undoubtedly be raced at this year's Tour de France, which one excites you the most?